Are they statues or soldiers? The French Legionnaire's voice echoes mockingly through the chill of dawn, shattering a silence meant to remain sacred. His words are crisp, precise, layered with unmistakable arrogance, as though daring the very air around him to carry the insult forward. It's the sort of moment observers later recall with uneasy laughter, shaking their heads while privately acknowledging they probably shouldn't have witnessed something so charged. But standing there, watching a foreign force openly mock the discipline of the royal guard, everyone senses that something subtle but profound is about to happen. And indeed, what happens next stuns everyone. But first, before the tension tightens further, let's pause briefly here. You probably shouldn't even be watching this level of diplomatic discomfort. But since you're already here, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this kind of tension-filled storytelling. And while you're at it, why not share in the comments below? Where are you watching from, and what uniform means most to your family? Now breathe slow, stand tall, and let's step into tonight's confrontation. It's barely sunrise in the manicured gardens outside the embassy. Rows of roses, symbolic gestures of harmony, still carry droplets of last night's rain. The royal guard stand motionless at their posts, crimson tunics radiant beneath the early gold light, bearskin hats casting sharp, unwavering shadows over faces trained to reveal nothing. They might as well be carved from marble. Even their breaths are carefully hidden. Opposite them, a visiting contingent from the French Foreign Legion lounges with studied ease. Distinguished warriors, every one of them decorated, their sand-colored uniforms marked by medals earned in fierce terrains across continents. Djibouti, Mali, Chad. They lean casually, rifles slung loosely, murmuring audibly amongst themselves. Their laughter floats irreverently through the formal quiet, cutting a sharp contrast against the royal guard's unyielding silence. It had been an uneasy week, diplomatically speaking. High-ranking officials had exchanged polite smiles and gentle handshakes, discussing alliances, shared training, and coordinated missions. But beneath formal pleasantries simmered an unspoken rivalry, an enduring cultural friction rooted in starkly contrasting philosophies. Legionnaire bravado versus guard discipline. One group celebrated fearless adaptability and flamboyant courage. The other revered restraint, impeccable protocol, and absolute silence as strength. Now, this unspoken rivalry surfaces blatantly. The Legionnaire's humor, normally a charming testament to their easygoing confidence, has become pointed, their casual irreverence almost openly hostile. Among them, Lieutenant Pierre Dubois, a veteran of countless missions and bearer of the Legion's highest honors, openly watches the guards with amused skepticism, as if their rigid discipline were merely an elaborate joke, a masquerade easily pierced by provocation. They won't move a muscle, Dubois whispers audibly to a younger comrade, deliberately loud enough to be overheard. Impressive, sure, but discipline without spirit is meaningless, don't you think? His companion nods, uncertain yet eager to earn approval, and the Legionnaires laugh once more, lightly, dismissively. Nearby, embassy staff exchange worried glances, sensing a diplomatic faux pas taking shape. But the royal guards, to their credit, remain utterly, inscrutably still. Theirs is a discipline honed over centuries. Generations have carried forward their silent vigilance as a living emblem of duty and dignity. To respond verbally, or worse, physically, to such provocation would betray their very oath. Yet even stone has its breaking point, observers quietly think. Lieutenant Dubois steps forward, closer now, eyes glinting mischievously. He pauses just at the edge of the invisible line separating dignified observation from direct challenge, hands clasped casually behind his back. A medal glistens on his chest, awarded for exceptional valor under enemy fire, a testament to bravery now worn with unsettling nonchalance. His voice rings softly, filled with patronizing sympathy. It must be difficult, standing there motionless hour after hour, pretending discipline is strength. But strength, gentlemen, real strength, is tested under fire, under movement, under pressure. Nothing, The guard's silence thickens. The gentle breeze rustles roses, but even nature seems hesitant to intervene. Dubois smiles faintly, enjoying himself. Embassy staff shift uneasily, feeling helplessly caught between protocol and instinctive discomfort. Perhaps, Dubois continues thoughtfully, the honor you claim is no longer relevant in our world. War evolves, gentlemen. Perhaps your traditions should too. His words hang dangerously, unanswered yet painfully audible. Several legionnaires nod approvingly, murmuring their agreement, emboldened by their leader's daring. Even embassy diplomats, trained in managing subtle conflicts, brace for what could come next. And then, just as Dubois takes a final step closer, pushing that unspoken boundary dangerously close to snapping, a single guard, eyes fixed unblinkingly forward, makes the slightest adjustment. A millimeter, perhaps, merely a tightening of grip around his rifle, the faintest movement of his fingers against polished wood. A detail so subtle it might be easily missed, but Lieutenant Dubois notices instantly, stopping mid-breath, his easy arrogance momentarily frozen. That tiny movement says more than any words could convey. I hear you, but I choose not to react. An uncomfortable silence settles. Dubois falters, caught off guard by the quiet force of that gesture. The Legionnaire's amusement fades subtly into something less certain, less arrogant. The Royal Guards maintain their absolute, disciplined silence, their point now clearly made. In the stillness of that confrontation, as the sun lifts higher, and the tension shifts imperceptibly yet profoundly, everyone present understands that something deeply significant has just occurred. This wasn't a confrontation of weapons or words, but of principles, of arrogance challenged quietly by the sheer immovable weight of dignity. Yet, this is only the beginning.
Lieutenant Dubois doesn't retreat. Instead, he lingers at the edge of the line, eyes narrowed in something more complicated than irritation, an unsettled curiosity. He spent his career in fire and fury, deserts and jungles, where orders change with the wind and survival depends on swift improvisation. To him, stillness has always meant death. Yet now, surrounded by the clipped hedges and manicured calm of diplomatic terrain, a man who hasn't moved an inch is the one commanding the moment. The Legionnaires grow quieter too, but the mood shifts sideways, not downward. One of them, Sergeant Leonard, the unit's unofficial jester, leans toward a nearby shrub, snatches a fallen petal, and theatrically offers it to a guard. A gift, he says with a bow, from the more flexible army. His accent is thick, his grin genuine. A few light chuckles ripple from the French contingent. A British diplomat tightens his lips, uncertain if he should intervene or laugh along. The guard doesn't move, doesn't blink. The petal drifts to the grass. It's a harmless moment, perhaps even comic, but it marks a shift in tone. The Legionnaires are no longer merely mocking, they're probing, poking, testing the living relic that is the Royal Guard, trying to see where the costume ends and the human begins. That's when it happens. Dubois makes his move. He steps forward again, just half a boot beyond the invisible barrier of decorum, a transgression that is small in distance but vast in meaning. His leather sole crushes the soft edge of gravel beyond the walkway. He now stands closer to the guard than any foreign soldier has in years. A murmur ripples through the British personnel. Several hands twitch near radios. One attaché shifts to alert posture, lips parting, but no order comes. Not yet. And Dubois arms behind his back. Voice casual speaks again. Tell me, soldier, have you ever even fired that weapon you cradle so lovingly? His question is not rhetorical. He waits. The guard remains utterly still, his eyes masked beneath the bearskin, his jaw set like carved granite. The weapon in question gleams faintly in the rising light. Ceremonial, yes, but real nonetheless. Dubois circles slightly, forcing the guard to track him with his peripheral vision. I don't mean on a range. My friend, I mean under pressure. With people screaming, chaos everywhere. Fire in your lungs, blood on the ground. Still no answer. Dubois lets out a sigh, not angry, but amused. No, didn't think so, but let me tell you something. And here he lowers his voice, just enough that the sound draws people closer. Diplomats inching forward as if leaning would soften the wrongness of it all. The real test of discipline isn't standing still in peacetime. It's not missing your daughter's birth because you're deployed. It's not learning to aim in the dark. It's doing all of that and still saluting your superior after a friend dies. That's what we do. Now his voice rises again. We fight, we suffer, we adapt, and we move. A moment passes, breathless. Then, finally, a ripple of motion, but not from the guard, from the embassy steps. A high-ranking British officer, Colonel Reginald Shaw, retired cavalry, now posted in ceremonial oversight, steps into view. His silver hair and razor-cut uniform carry the weight of decorum like a second skin. Without a word, he walks calmly down the stairs toward Dubois, who turns slowly, face neutral but eyes alert. Colonel Shaw stops a few paces away. "Lieutenant Dubois," he says evenly. "This area is governed by standing codes of interforce engagement. You are aware of Article 6, Paragraph 12. Dubois' smile tightens. The one about ceremonial zones, of course. And you understand that deliberate engagement within the defined ceremonial perimeter is prohibited without formal invitation?" Dubois nods. "But I haven't touched anyone. I've spoken. Surely you don't fear words, Colonel." Shaw doesn't flinch. "Not at all. We simply measure them. As you know, French and British codes differ. But here, words do count as action." Dubois' eyes narrow, catching the subtle threat behind the old man's civility. Shaw leans in slightly. "Your presence within 6 feet of my guard will be recorded as a protocol breach, as will any further commentary aimed at provoking." There's a pause, just long enough for the silence to gather weight. Then Dubois steps back. Not far, but enough. Colonel Shaw, satisfied, turns without further comment and walks away, his gait as calm as a man strolling toward breakfast. The French soldiers exchange glances. The moment has shifted again, away from humor, away from curiosity, toward something sharper, an edge they hadn't anticipated. The weight of a system that doesn't flinch, doesn't answer, but does remember. Dubois gives a dry laugh. "Well then," he mutters, "perhaps their silence is a kind of strategy." He returns to his unit, eyes still fixed briefly on the guards. One of them, the youngest, lets a breath escape his nostrils. It fogs slightly in the morning air, the only evidence he's alive. A historical fact drifts through the tension, perhaps recalled by one of the watching aides. During World War II, British Guardsman Alfred ably stood for 17 hours outside Windsor Castle while bombs fell within hearing range. He did not leave his post. When asked why later, he simply replied, "Because I hadn't been relieved." Such is the legacy the Royal Guard embodies. But that legacy is more than endurance. It is the act of standing still while the world spins provocations around you. And yet, this morning, the world spins faster. The French, now aware that pushing further might ignite something they didn't anticipate, pull back, but only slightly. Behind them, a camera clicks, not media, just an aide with a discreet device. Silence, once amusing, is now unsettling. And the guard, he who twitched only once, tightens his jaw imperceptibly, like a man bracing for a wave others can't yet see.
The next day, the air hangs heavier. No new words are spoken, at least not across the gravel divide, but something has changed. There's a stiffness to the French soldiers' movements now, a subtler posture in how they carry themselves around the garden's edge. They don't lounge anymore, they observe. And the Royal Guards, they haven't moved at all, not visibly. But if you look closely, closer than you should, their stillness now hums with a quiet defiance. Not stubbornness, no. Something more practiced, more precise. The sun is higher this time, shadows fall sharper. The silence that once felt ornamental now feels strategic. Lieutenant Dubois, for all his earlier bravado, no longer smirks. He walks the perimeter with his hands behind his back like an instructor evaluating a drill. But he doesn't taunt, doesn't speak. His eyes scan, calculating. If arrogance drove him yesterday, today it is pride and something else. A need to win. But win what exactly? The British Guards don't even acknowledge him, which, ironically, is what enraged him most. You see, in the Legion, respect is earned aloud, through action, volume, visibility. A salute means nothing without the fire behind it. They are built on raw hardship, on transformation. Join the Legion and your name passed, even your identity is stripped. What remains is forged anew, often in combat zones the world forgets. The Royal Guard, quite the opposite, built not on reinvention but inheritance. Uniforms worn by great-grandfathers, routines unchanged since Victoria, every movement scripted down to breathe. Their discipline is not loud but long, not aggressive but anchored. That contrast, unspoken but undeniable, fuels the tension now rising. Today, a more elaborate ceremony is scheduled, a wreath-laying, joined by international envoys. The Guards are to present arms. The French have been invited only to observe, but Dubois sees opportunity. He whispers to Leonard, who nods, hesitates, then obeys. The joke of the pedal has passed. This new gesture won't be funny. It will be symbolic. As the wreath is carried forward and the Royal Guard raises arms with the elegant timing of clockwork, Leonard breaks formation. He strides, not quickly but deliberately, past his own unit's boundary and into the grass, approaching the path where the Guards have formed their honor corridor. A ripple of breath passes through the crowd. He carries nothing, says nothing. But he walks tall, palms open, and then stops. Right in the middle of the ceremonial route. It's not violent, not loud, but it is clear he is occupying sacred ground. The guard to his right doesn't twitch. The one on the left doesn't glance. The rifles remain raised. The wreath approaches. Protocol dictates that the path remain unobstructed, that no one, not even fellow military, cross that threshold during arms present. And yet here stands Leonard, half a step too far. Observers shift, cameras pivot. A diplomat nearly speaks but holds it in, because to say something now would be to admit something is wrong. And then, unexpectedly, astonishingly, it happens. Nothing. Not a single guard moves. Instead, the one nearest Leonard lowers his rifle slightly, tilting just enough to suggest the path is now adjusted. He does it not to accommodate, but to expose. The rifle no longer guards the traditional line. It now guards him. Leonard, as if he were a dignitary. The implication is so refined, so laced with unspoken wit, that it takes half a minute for the meaning to settle. And when it does, it stings. Leonard flushes, realizes he's just been turned into a prop. By standing where he shouldn't, he's been folded into the ceremony itself, as an object to be protected, not a challenger to be confronted. Even Dubois swallows hard, because now the joke's turned. The guard didn't break discipline, he expanded it. The move is subtle, but military minds recognize subtlety as the highest skill. Years ago, in Sandhurst's officer training, there was a phrase etched above the mess: "Power held still is more terrifying than power released." This moment illustrates exactly that. Eventually, Leonard steps back. No one addresses him, no one commands, but every step away feels heavier than the last. He rejoins the Legionnaires. Dubois does not scold him, he does not speak, because now the silence belongs to someone else. Later, after the ceremony concludes, a British aide overhears one of the American attachés whisper to his French counterpart, "You know, we mock those hats, but damn if they didn't just win this." Still no press coverage, still no confrontation. But behind closed doors there are notes. Internal memos circulate quietly. Embassy security logs the protocol bend. The British file no complaint because technically nothing happened, but diplomatically everything did. Dubois doesn't sleep well that night. He replays the movement, the angle of the rifle, the calm in the guard's face, the way the entire confrontation unfolded with no raised voice, no gesture of force. He wonders, for the first time in a long while, if stillness might be harder than motion. And he wonders, how many times, in how many places, have soldiers like these won battles, without anyone even realizing there was a war?
By the third day, nothing is said. No snide comments, no half-step intrusions, no falling petals. But now it's not tension that fills the air, it's recognition. It's the quiet, creeping realization on the side of the Legion that they may have misread the battlefield. Dubois stands apart from his men, leaning near the embassy's western colonnade, his face unusually still. The usual flick of the brow, the upturned corner of a smile, gone. Instead, his eyes remain fixed on the guard nearest the roses. That same guard, the one who adjusted his grip on the rifle, the one who altered his stance without flinching, the one who made Leonard look like a guest at his own prank. He's not just a ceremonial soldier. None of them are, that is now clear. What Dubois begins to grasp, but cannot yet admit aloud, is that these men don't stand still because they lack spirit. They stand still because of it, a kind of spiritual discipline. Monastic, even, he thinks of something a retired legionnaire once told him in Nims: never underestimate silence. In war, it's the only sound that makes men nervous. That line comes back now with inconvenient clarity. The day's agenda includes a cultural exchange, an informal drill showcase between the visiting French and the British hosts. On paper, a friendly affair. In practice, it's a minefield of ceremonial choreography and carefully guarded pride. The Legion marches first, precise, aggressive, bold. The rhythm is thunderous, echoing through the stone courtyard. Boots slam, rifles spin. Commands bark in clipped French. It's a spectacle of movement, raw energy. Even some British staff applaud lightly, politely, diplomatically. And then the Royal Guard takes the field. No music, no stomping. Just synchronized steps, silent, deliberate. Their rifles move with the slow grace of a falling pendulum. Each pivot is a calculation. Each pause an oration. The absence of sound magnifies every detail. The Legionnaires watch, arms crossed. A few nod reluctantly, but one doesn't. Sergeant Renaud, a veteran of Sahel deployments, frowns. "That's not discipline," he mutters. "That's performance." Dubois hears it, says nothing, but his expression flickers because he knows now it's both. When the final guard halts at the end of the drill, the silence that follows is not empty. It rings, it echoes. A silence that somehow feels heavier than applause. And indeed, no one claps, not out of offense, out of reverence. Dubois exhales. It's subtle, but it betrays an internal shift. Later that evening, behind the embassy's glass reception doors, a private dinner is held for select officers. No speeches. Just quiet drink, restrained food, and too much silverware. Dubois is seated near Colonel Shaw. It's deliberate. They exchange pleasantries, Napoleonic campaigns, sandstorms, mutual friends long buried in medals. And then without preamble, Shaw speaks plainly. "You remind me of a hussar I once met in Kandahar. Loud, proud, carried honor like a banner, but mistook stillness for absence." Dubois chuckles politely. "And what did you do?" "I stood still," Shaw replies, "until he saw himself reflected in my calm." Dubois nods slowly, not defensive, thoughtful. A server walks by, 2 glasses are filled. Shaw continues, voice like gravel smoothed by diplomacy. "You see, Lieutenant, the guard does not exist to respond. We exist to hold. The line, the dignity, the silence." Dubois swirls his wine. "I'm beginning to understand that." Outside, the guards still stand. The same ones. They've rotated, of course, but the illusion of permanence is maintained. That's part of the art. The Legion changes men. The Guard, instead, asks men to disappear into tradition, to become something larger than identity. Not unlike the Legion in its own way, Dubois realizes, but with the opposite aesthetic. In the garden, the roses have bloomed further. Their scent drifts on a light wind. A few petals fall again. This time, none are caught, none are mocked. As Dubois walks out later, long after most have gone to bed, he finds himself pausing near the guard by the roses. He doesn't speak, but he lifts 2 fingers in a slight gesture, halfway between a nod and a salute. The guard does not move, and yet, somehow the gesture is returned, not with fingers, not with eyes, but with presence. Dubois turns to leave. Behind him, silence stands watch.
The final morning arrives with an almost eerie calm. No more laughter from the French side. No whispered jabs. Just boots hitting gravel, measured breathing, and the ambient hush of a place that has seen something shift, quietly but irreversibly. Today, the visiting military delegation is scheduled to depart. A symbolic farewell is arranged at the front of the embassy, under the Union Jack and tricolor, both raised at half-staff for a moment of remembrance. 2 allies, 2 histories, 2 philosophies. The Royal Guard stands in perfect line. Opposite them, the French Legionnaires form up, rigid now, not flamboyant. Even Leonard's usual sideways grin is gone. Only Dubois remains loose, but not out of disrespect. It's the kind of looseness that comes with humility earned through quiet study. As the anthem plays, both anthems in full, the air is thick with something no protocol document could name. A mixture of respect, unease, and recognition. And then it happens. The British commanding officer, not Shaw this time but a younger major in full dress, steps forward and invites Dubois to approach the guard line for an official closing salute. It's meant to be a gesture of unity, one commanding officer acknowledging another on behalf of their men. Dubois hesitates. He's been in firefights with less intensity than this moment. Still, he walks forward. The gravel shifts beneath his step. His medals clink faintly, but he walks with none of the swagger from earlier days. Just breathe. He stops directly in front of the same guard from before, the one who had moved not an inch during all the provocations. There is no protocol for this exact moment, not in any manual. No procedure describes what to do when pride and silence meet in a standoff without weapons. Dubois raises his hand slowly, and then he salutes. A sharp, full Legionnaire salute. It is not returned. The guard simply remains still, his chin slightly lifted, his eyes obscured beneath the shadow of his bearskin. But it is enough. Dubois drops his hand, nods once, barely perceptible, and steps back. The Legionnaires watch this in silence. And then, without any command, a second salute comes, not from a British guard, but from Leonard. He raises his hand to his temple and salutes the guards, not mockingly, not dramatically, just once. A clean gesture of respect. Others follow. Soon, every Legionnaire stands tall, offering the kind of salute one reserves for equals or for those you finally understand. Still, not a single guard moves. But now their silence feels like something shared, not something guarded. In the final hour, the embassies exchange formal words. Transcripts are drafted. There is no mention of petals, of protocol breaches, of unrecorded gestures, only the official line. The visit concluded with mutual expressions of respect and shared military values. But within military circles, word spreads differently. The story is passed, not in official cables, but in mess halls and base camps from Kabul to Corsica. They say, a legionnaire challenged the guard. And then they say, the guard answered without saying a word. The embassy grounds return to quiet. Roses bloom and fall without witnesses. The gravel path, once the stage for silent conflict, now welcomes only gardeners and wandering birds. The guard changes on schedule, unnoticed by anyone but the ticking of the internal watch. Inside the diplomatic halls, polished shoes echo less sharply. Conversations drift back toward policy and paperwork. No one mentions the confrontation directly, but the tone is different now. There's less swagger in one room, more consideration in another. Names like Dubois and Shaw linger in margins of unofficial notes, circled not for punishment but reflection. In a hallway lined with portraits of former envoys, one aide pauses to study a photo of a royal guard frozen mid-pivot. It looks like nothing, but now he knows better. Elsewhere, in a quiet cafe near St. James's Park, two soldiers, one British, one French, sit over tea. They say nothing about what passed, just sip in silence, watching the sky turn from silver to pale blue. Outside, the guard resumes his post. A child passes, giggling, waving. The guard does not wave back, but the stillness around him softens. There is peace there if you know how to see it. And as the embassy's flag flutters faintly in the breeze, somewhere in the quiet between two breaths, something deeper is understood. Because sometimes the strongest salute is standing perfectly still.